Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. In this edition of PostBurnout.com interviews the Donegal-based English musician and producer Ross Tones, professionally known as Throwing Snow, and the Corkonian writer, poet and mental health advocate Daragh Fleming discuss how they came together to craft their song Peddling and their future plans. Thank you and enjoy.
Hello.
Hi Daragh, how's it going?
How's it going? How are you?
I'm very well. Is it just us or will Ross be joining us well? Do
Oh,
you
this is
know?
Jordan as well. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. We'll just wait till then. How's things? You enjoying the hot weather, I guess?
Yeah, to be fair, sorry, I forgot there's a red panda up on this, but he's fine. Yeah, it's
There
been
you go.
good now, to be fair, the last. We can't complain, like.
Yeah.
We can't complain.
Well, but I'll just wait till Ross joins, but I was going to say perfect song for the summer.
Exactly, exactly. All
Hi,
right.
Ross. How's it going?
Oh, hello. How can you hear me?
I can hear you grand. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, good, thank you. Just avoiding black flies, which seem to have gathered in the living room for some reason.
Oh, it's the same here. They're
Oh my
everywhere,
God.
man.
Yeah. So if you hear a random buzzing sounds, it's not.
I don't think they'll pick up, thankfully. um, I want to ask a little bit about this collaboration peddling. So, my understanding, if I'm getting this correct, Ross, you were familiar with Dara's work, and then you contacted him. Is that correct?
Yeah, totally. I just came across him on social media, um, and then just thought his message was really good and inspirational. Um, And I had this song that I'd done for an architect and cyclist, just like for her personally, so she could have something motivational to when she was riding up a hill, called Philippa Batty. And this was a few years ago. And then it just instantly came into my head when I heard his voice and his kind of meter, and reached out to him, and within 30 seconds he'd got back, and then I sent him the song, and then within like a week or so, it was kind of done. It was amazing. I
Mm.
really like quick, instinctive relationships and collaborators, so it was kind of perfect.
And
Mm.
did you give him any kind of like idea of what the song should be about, or did you just give him complete like free reign, just
Well, it was
craft what you
called
want?
the song was called Cycling, and I was like, just do whatever you. I'm just like into your messages and what you've got to say, so I didn't give him anything. And then I guess because the title was called Cycling, that might have influenced like what he said. You'll have to ask him because I haven't actually asked him.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
Dara.
I mean, I can speak on that. Yeah, and like similarly, like when we first connected, like I saw that Ross had followed me, and I went onto his page, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." Like a producer, and I was actually going into messages to message Ross and just say hello, because like I was like, whatever, what he's doing is cool, and then I saw that he had messaged me, so I was like, okay, this is working very nicely, and like in terms of the music, like Ross asked me like, would I ever be like interested in doing poetry to music, and I've always been interested in it. Like, and there's a lot of artists that I really admire, like Laboom, K Tempest, who do this kind of thing, and I just don't have any musical ability in terms of like producing instrumentals or anything. So I was like, ultimately, yes, I just don't have the means. And he was like, I have the means, we can do this. um, so it was very just naturally like serendipitous. But with the song itself, like, yeah, I think cycling as a title definitely like influence, like, because I as soon as I saw cycling, like I spent most of my childhood on a bike, like cycling across the beaches in Ardmore. That's how I spent all my summers, like, so that's immediately where my head went. And Yeah, as Ross said, it was very like just instinctive, and I just started I like started writing to the music, and that's what was kind of coming out. So it was like the song title plus just the actual track itself just brought out this kind of nostalgia for the summers of our youth kind of thing, and I just went with that.
Yeah, actually, as Russ was kind of mentioning there, I mean, the turnaround rate seemed kind of quick from him initially sending you the track to you having something to put to it. Do you find that like prompts like cycling or something like that kind of is good fuel for creativity?
Yeah, and music itself, like, because even my poetry outside of doing it for music, I always write to instrumentals anyway, because it just
Yeah,
like I think music can give you like all these emotional cues and puts you in a certain frame of mind and mood, and that like bring up certain things. So like I've always written to music anyway, so it was kind of like a natural thing for me to do. And then I suppose why it was so quick was like one, I was just majorly excited about like the opportunity to do it, and it was fun. And it's like, I write essays and fiction and poetry, and this is just a new lane of creativity, and that's just exciting and novel. So I was just like buzzing to get started. So that, I think that's why it was so quick to turn around.
when I was listening to the track, I was getting kind of this what was kind of evoking for me, and I don't know how kind of like how forthcoming you want to be about the messaging, but for me, it seemed like there's a time in their life during youth where. There's all these like I guess different branching paths for various different sort of metamorphoses for where we're going to be as adults, and there's kind of an excitement in the track of like all that potential of when you're young, there's just I don't know, it's like kind of stargazing in a way where you can kind of you're envisioning your future. But I also found that there seemed to be like a bit of like melancholy in the track too, a bit of awareness of time elapsing. Are
Mm.
all these fair interpretations?
Yeah, definitely from a lyric standpoint, like it's kind of all of that, and it's like when you were a child, I remember I'd go down to Ardmore for like 8 weeks, and 8 weeks as an adult is a very short period of time, but
Yeah,
8 weeks when I was 13 was like infinite. And I think in those summers, like, and I was only thinking about this morning, like you were always present, like the things you worried about were the things in front of you.
yeah,
Like I'd be worrying about, oh, did the lads leave the car from park already and go to the shop without me, and do I have to cycle across? Like that, those were the concerns. They're
sure.
all very immediate. Whereas like now it's kind of like, your concerns are kind of global and it's everything at once, and it's almost very little of your concerns are what's right in front of you. It's like everything else. So there's that kind of, I suppose, yeah, the melancholy comes in like you're trying to recapture that like simplicity and kind of the bubble you're in as a child, where it's like the only things I worry about are the things that are available to me to worry about. Whereas as an adult, we tend to worry about a lot of different things. So there is I suppose, a pining for like a simpler time.
And one other thing I just wanted to ask was like you mentioned this was kind of your first foray into lyric writing for a song. Yeah, one thing I think is really interesting compared to say like poetry or short story writing is that oftentimes the kind of beats sort of dictate dictate lyrics in the sense that you have to kind of constantly rewrite to make sure that like this, you're using the right amount of syllables to like fit into a piece. Now, obviously, this piece is more kind of spoken word over an instrumentation. But did you find that writing for song lyrics, sorry, writing over an instrumental rather, posed a new challenge that was unique to the poetry you'd already been familiarized with? Excuse me.
Yeah, no, definitely, because like when you're writing something for the page or for spoken word, like you kind of have an expectation of what the meter will be and how it'll be like performed. And then for this, like you're obviously dictating the flow of the piece to the music. So like if I was to say recite this poem without music, it would probably sound a lot different, and it would be a lot quicker, because you just be like, rather than like leaving these like pauses on purpose so the music can kind of like intertwine with the words. If I was performing it and there was no music, you'd just be leaving like empty space, and that might feel a bit awkward in a performance. So yeah, you're kind of like you don't have to fill up all the space, which is nice. And obviously, Ross sent me the track, and it was 8 minutes long, and I was like, I can't do an 8 minute poem. So you leave the song plays a part in the poem in that sense because you're like, okay, there's a pause here for this bit of instrumental, and we'll come back in when it like kind of peaks again, and that was interesting and new, but it did feel very like natural. I don't know, it didn't like it was a challenge, but like it was fun to do because it was like, okay, this is very different to actually writing a piece that I'm just going to perform like at a slam or something. And even like, because me and Ross are working on another project, and maybe we can talk about that. But one of the poems I wrote for that, I did at a slam the other week, and I sent Ross the video of it the other day, and I was like, yeah, it's very like different without the music, and I think like the music very much enhances the emotional beats of the poem.
Ross, from from your perspective, was making the track 8 minutes long, the instrumentation 8 minutes long, a deliberate decision in order to give Dara enough time to actually tell a story?
No, well, the original track was um it was kind of improvised and jammed out, and then it was 15 minutes long to begin with, so I cut it down because I think Philippa's Hill Climb was about 8 minutes 30, so that's roughly where it came from. But then the when I got the spoken words lyrics back from it, like Dara said, when he used, say, the first 3 minutes 30 and then the rest was left, I took the track and then redid it um around, and I because I work with vocalists and in other bands I've got like Snow Ghost and things, like the vocal arrangement and the pacing of things is quite important. But in all honesty, I left a gap that wasn't there and slightly moved around some of the lyrics, and then took the important bits that I really liked, which was the repeated line, and then placed them throughout the time. And then musically, I instantly got like what it meant, like because like Dara was saying, like I grew up like in the countryside in the northeast of England, riding my bike everywhere. Like that was it. And then we used to visit the coast, and I just got this hazy VHS feeling like I was looking back in time, and like it's like the phrase rose tinted spectacles or whatever.
Mm.
You obviously, I saw it through that prism. So normally what I would have done with like a track like this is make it more for the make it more for the dance floor, I suppose, because you want a big rise and a big drop and all that. But narratively, I really like the music to work around the lyrics. So there was like bits like when you talk about the disco beat thumping and
Mm.
things like that, and just put two kicks to back that up, and then instead of making it like really big, is more I pushed everything further back so it feels like a haze. Like it felt like you were almost your first nightclub experience and you were stood outside. So the drums aren't like you're in the club. They're more like the memory of you hearing that song from outside. So it's
Mm.
sort of muffled, and it's like it felt like I was trying to reproduce that filter through time, but
Mm.
reflect it musically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting because it's like the music is kind of like as a as a tool, it's like it feels like a memory of a summer that like went on forever,
Yeah, yeah,
which
that's
is like really cool. Like,
and I suppose that especially when you just it doesn't really drop into something, it just kind of continues and
mm,
grows in a little bit. And it is like that kind of like I just want to think about that memory for a little while
mm,
rather than being taken on more of a journey. It's more of a loop so you can stay in that lovely memory, as opposed to, oh, we need to get to the next bit, we need to forget about that. It's like, oh, modern life, like move forward. It's like, no, no,
yeah,
enjoy the reminisce. Like,
mm,
And obviously, Ross was mentioned there that he collaborates with other artists. But Dara, for yourself, I mean, have you done much collaboration beforehand? Because like obviously with writing and with doing your own poetry and your own spoken word, you have full autonomy over everything that goes through. Was there any reluctance, I guess, on your end to kind of relinquish that and kind of know that things could be potentially re-edited and reformed, or was that kind of exciting to you?
There was no, I mean, I feel like depending on the relationship and the vibe, there could be hesitation and like desire to hold on to control. But with Ross, like immediately it was very clear that like he was like genuine on and authentic, and this was just coming from a place of like creativity and wanting to like see like experiment with what we could do. So I was like, from the get-go, I was like, I kind of trust you inherently because like I don't know the music industry or the business or anything like that. So it was very much just like trusting and just believing that his judgment would be the most effective thing for the song because I wouldn't have a clue what would be good for a song or
Sure.
not. So yeah, it was very much trust there. And like I have collaborated in the past, but it's more like this is the first time with music, obviously, but with poetry, it tends to be a lot around like responding to like visual art. And I've done a few things like I worked with Joe Caslin for a project for the Samaritans, and there's been a few pop-up galleries here and there where like poems have been on display in response to either like a prompt or some art. Um, and that's kind of more it's a different collaboration, like equally as exciting, but I suppose not as yeah, you're not creating like because this is a collaboration to create something completely new. Whereas like if you're writing in response to art, the poem itself just sits alongside the art, and you're not like combining the two things to make something new. So in that sense, this is a very like new experience, which is great.
And one other thing I wanted to ask about this track is that obviously there is a radio edit that's about 5 minutes shorter than the full track. Ross, from your perspective, I mean, did you find that difficult then to kind of bring down, or was it actually kind of a relatively easy experience?
I think the radio edit. This is the problem with like repackaging stuff um for outlets and media and the way we want to like uh everything needs to be packaged these days in like short little segments. So I was just like the radio edit is because what radio people want like and like doing this for a long time with a lot of different releases. To get something accepted by the general media, sometimes you just have to make compromises. So instead of this, like the 5 minutes when you live with that reminiscent, lovely summer memory, you don't get a chance to do that. You go like, oh, that's it, edit, radio, bling, something else, and then it goes on to another track. It's like I'm really into living like if you create something is to like live with it for a little bit longer than this like short little clip transient kind of memories. So a lot of the work I do outside and weirdly with the project that Dara and I are doing now after this is like long music, like and longer pieces that you get to live in a world. So the radio edit was actually quite hard to do because it was just like, oh, it's got to be under 3 minutes 30, and that's pretty much when Dara stops. So no, I even have to cut out little bits to try and make it fit, just to have Dara's section in like the right format for radio. So it was a challenge, and I kind of feel the radio edit won't give the full feeling of the track. Like for me, it is the full track,
Mm.
and the radio edit is a compromise like that. That's
Yeah.
but that's just what you have to do.
Dara, do you have any experience with that? Have you ever had to kind of, I guess, limit any of your art for commercial purposes, or I understand like with spoken word, for example, there can often be time limits. Do you
Mm.
relate to that in your own art?
Yeah, yeah, like I'm always fearful of the 3 minute time limit with
Yeah.
with poetry on a slam because you're like I don't because like typically I won't like I don't like to make my poetry clinical, so like going into like a slam, I'll never like time myself. I'm just like, I'm pretty sure this feels under 3 minutes, so I'm just gonna like hope for the best. And then I suppose like in more commercial stuff, like because with like most of the things I do, like pieces are as long as they have to be, kind of like similar to Ross with the music. They're as long as I think they should be, which could be 500 words, but it could be 4,000 words. And if especially if you're writing, with the ambition to like send it in to like the Examiner or the Independent, like think piece or an editorial, you always get to like, yeah, this is great, we want to publish this, but it needs to be under 1,500 words, and you might have
Yeah.
written 3,000 words, and you're like, okay, how do I cut this down so it still makes sense, but you're losing half of it, and that is a nightmare. That is a difficult sell, like, and then sometimes there's places where they have a word count from the get-go. They're like, we won't accept over 2,000 words. And then the piece I wanted to submit to them is like 3,500 words. And I'm just like, this piece isn't for this magazine as a result.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't think pieces will be as strong if we have to cut them down. So sometimes you have to make compromises. And the compromise is I'm not putting this forward to be published because it just becomes a different piece. It's not the same piece if you have to like remove a lot of it.
Yeah, actually, I've experience with that too, of like submitting writing that has like a tight word count, and sometimes I think actually I don't know if you feel this way too, but sometimes it can actually kind of be beneficial to the craft a little bit because you have to
Hmm.
kind of be more economical with your words, and you have to you try and express things in a more laconic fashion, I guess. Do you find
Hmm.
there's for both of you, do you find there's ever any benefits to trying to limit your expression to someone else's, I guess, parameters, just in terms of, I don't know, kind of like honing your art in a different way, or is it most of the time just kind of a headache?
No, you're spot on because I think like yeah, like having that limitation from an editorial perspective does because like there'd be sometimes where like I have this word count and I'm way over it, and it kind of alerts you to like you might have been gratuitous with like describing something, or like this part is good writing but it actually isn't necessary for the piece, and
Sure.
cutting those things out. So you're like, okay, what pieces are absolutely necessary for this, essay or poem to make sense? And so yeah, it does a lot of times it ends up improving the piece because you're like, I'm just cutting away all the kind of the fatty bits that are like me just kind of flexing poetically or something, and I don't need that and like to make the piece make sense. So yeah, it does definitely like I mean, editors are there for a reason. They do always just make the piece the best version of it. And even when it's come to like the books and stuff, like with Lonely Boy, like we cut out a lot like that. I think when it was published, it was just under 70,000 words, but when I submitted initially, it was like 95,000 words. So we cut out like a
Mhm.
big portion of that, and it just made the book more like cohesive and sensical because like the extra 25,000 words was just me rambling essentially. So,
Sure.
I mean,
Um, sorry, go ahead.
from a music point of view, I totally believe in like minimalism, and like nearly all my favorite pieces are very, very small on the sound front. But the one thing that I don't feel limited by is length in terms of what I want to do creatively. So in a way, it's kind of the opposite. It's like I love haikus, for instance, like that kind
mm,
of limited minimalist form is like something that every little detail has to have lots of meaning in. But at the same time, it's like I love like Steve Reich's work or whatever, where it's just like phasing or these pieces are just one thing, just going out of phase with each other. Like, and that is it means that with the very barest of elements, your mind changes and you can and basically things progress and new patterns come in, but it's all from the very minimal material, and I think that's huge. Like, and I'm really drawn to that. But weirdly, length isn't. Length is the one thing that you need because to have minimal amount of stuff, you need length for the mind to understand the minimalist aspect of it.
mm.
Um, so it's different. But I definitely feel the same way in terms of like constrictions.
Perfect. I'm gonna wrap up now, but by asking about your future plans. But just before I get that, just for my own sake, when I'm writing this later, Ross, you briefly mentioned you saw a piece of Dara's online, and that's kind of what inspired getting in contact. Do you remember what that piece was, or will I just be vague about it later?
He's got a few things that are like repeating things, like things to do with men's mental health and um but there was one which he's reframed it a different way recently, um, which was just like just be sound. Like
Mm,
like in all your practices. And it's like I couldn't that's me. It's like try everything, be overly generous, like put your all into everything, be honest, be fair, and overcommit to things. And that's the message that kind of drew me. It's like just be sound. I was like, that's exactly it. That's what we need. We need far more of that in this world.
mm,
Um, and yeah, I think everyone will empathize with that or understand it, because if you're not being sound, you're just trying to take advantage of someone else, and it's
mm.
absolutely something I don't believe in.
And
Yeah, it's sorry.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead there.
No, yeah, it's just very much like, yeah, like be sane for the sake of saneness, as
Yeah.
opposed to like being nice to people strategically. Like strategical kindness is kind of like twisted and gross, where it's like you're just being, and like honestly, I think especially if you like are on the are on the internet as much as I am, um, being sound is far less taxing and effortful than being horrible and mean. Like it takes far less energy. So it's like even in terms of like your own well-being, like it's easier for you to be sound
Yeah.
than it is to be like horrible, like because that just fills you with this like tightness and tense, like you just tense up. So yeah, and that's been. I mean, that's the way I grew up. That's how I was raised. It was like, my father is kind of the walking embodiment of what Dumbledore once said, where it's like there's a difference between what is right and what is easy. And like the right thing to do, and this is kind of the opposite of that fact, so Dumbledore's kind of wrong. Like the easy thing to do in this scenario is to do the right thing, I think, in terms of being kind. Like it is the simple path.
Yeah, I'm actually threatening to write my own sort of thesis on the general malaise I'm finding around, people speaking about the kind of loneliness epidemic of people. My opinion is that I think sort of the male loneliness epidemic, as it's called, is a little too myopic. I think it's more universally felt, and
Hmm.
my theory or my jumping off point is I think a huge part of that is the sort of provisional nature of everything in life now, where there's just no security in any aspect and things are a little too transactional. I've yet to fully
Hmm.
form it out yet, but that's kind of my basis of, whether it comes to work or whether it comes to um, a lot of different elements. It feels like no one really has their feet on the ground, and we're all just kind of floating into provisional stages of life consistently. And I think that's causing a lot of issues. I don't know if you have any opinions on that, or am
Yeah,
I
like
saying I'm full of crap?
things are weirdly like Machiavellian, like because everything
Yeah.
is like strategic or planned or done for a with a like an ulterior motive. And because I like years ago, I was talking about this in the context of like encouragement. Because I think because a lot of people are creative and want to be artists or want to do a podcast or want to do this thing that might be outside the convention of doing a 9 to 5 job. And I
Hmm.
think the only thing that's stopping them is like they don't have enough encouragement in their support system. And like for me, encouragement is completely free to give. It's easy to give, and it can often make a massive impact on people's lives. And people are just so reluctant to give it. It's like a protected resource, even though it's kind of infinitely available. And I think that just comes back to this idea of like everyone's somehow competing for the same thing, and it's in social media context it's the attention economy, like, but again there's an infinite amount of attention as well, so even if you are looking at it that way, encouraging people who are doing other things is just a net positive for everyone, but we still seem to be like hesitant to do it, like.
Yeah. And generally, actually, that goes on to a broader thing. Like, and I open this question up to both of you. When it comes to, I guess, choosing who to collaborate with, how do you kind of like discern between people who are doing it perhaps for less than noble motives, let's say, and people who are genuinely invested in what you're doing and are trying to create something that will, I guess, kind of, if maybe elevate is not the right term, but kind of, I guess, kind of I don't know, kind of bring your modes of expression into different areas versus people who are just trying to, I guess, do it for a sense of, I don't know, their own status or profile, if that makes sense.
I mean, um, for me, it's a weird thing because like I've released music for say, I don't know, 15 years or whatever, and got luckily got to be invited to lots of countries to play. And it's quite amazing that although my music, apart from like Snow Ghost projects and things like this, most of my music is instrumental. It's actually extraordinary, like how you meet people with similar views that have only got that through listening to your music. Like it always blows my mind that somehow the stuff that I do or I don't know what it is. It's just the music seems to lay out what I am as a person, and people who are like that get attracted to it. Like, and it is
Mm,
bizarre. I don't know how that works. I suppose that's the mystery of of music and why and like I'm obsessed with this point and lots to do with like the meaning why whether music or language came first, for instance, and
mm,
lots of anthropology behind um, this and linguistics and archaeolinguistics. And I used to think that like music developed out of language, but now I'm pretty sure that music sort of came first and it was useful in an evolutionary sense. So maybe it has something to do with that, that it's a deeper innate thing that
mm,
you manage to transmit a message without knowing it. So in terms of like reading into whether I should work with someone, if if they are doing it because see an opportunity to make money and they want to put your name on something to make money, if it's for them and it's not attached to me and they're not trying to take advantage of me, then totally I will do the work that they would like done as long as I roughly believe in the principles.
mm,
But when you work with someone personally, you automatically get that vibe straight away. If that makes sense, it's like the music thing. It's just like Dara just came across as a proper sound person, so I was just like, this is someone I would like to work with, and I think it's something to do that we can't put words on it. It's more of an innate feeling, I think, through being
mm,
a a species that depends on community. Like that's why we're still here and haven't we become
mm.
extinct, basically.
Yeah. No, yeah, similar. Like I think without like even like rationalizing it away, like I think very much for me it's a gut feeling and it's intuition, and you can kind of see the snake oil salesman or the people who are trying to like yeah just leverage you to like for their own status. You can kind of see them pretty quickly. Like the mask slips pretty fast. So yeah, and then like yeah, it then once you can see that, the people who are genuine, and similarly like the people who want to collaborate with me are people who like the message I'm delivering and the poetry, and I'm like, if you're really into what I'm doing, I don't see how you could be a kind of, a grifter type person if you're really into my poetry, because it's really like soft masculinity and like compassion and awareness. So I'm like, if you're really into it, there's probably very slim chance that you're also like a psychopath.
And one other thing I wanted to ask just about this track is the change in the title. So as you were mentioning, it went from cycling to pedaling. So I was wondering what was the decision about that?
Well,
There you
it
go.
yeah, it basically Dara said that this is called peddling. Um, so I was like, and this is the same thing with collaboration. It's not like I don't think we need to have this discussion between us as to what it is. It's like it's not now the track that it was before. It's something different and something better. And Dara's put his own stamp on our collaboration, and he wants to call it peddling. And I was just like, it's called peddling. Like,
Mm.
there's a certain aspect of like, don't over discuss things too much. It's like because you can end up just like either hurting someone or bruising someone's ego or like, and that isn't the thing you're trying to do. Unless you feel strongly that it's like, oh, it's got to be called cycling, which to be
Mm.
honest with you is a ridiculous point because it's an instrumental track. So I was just the poem is called peddling, so we're going to call it peddling. That's how I felt about it anyway.
Mm. And for me, yeah, like the poem just was called pedaling because obviously I don't actually ever name cycling, but it's like implied like and pedal and pedaled. Um, so yeah, I called the poem pedaling, but that was never really with the sure-footedness of like the poem's called pedaling, so therefore the track is called pedaling. I was like, no, the poem's
Mhm.
called pedaling, but the track can be whatever we decide to call it. But Ross liked pedaling as well, so it was like, okay, easy.
And it was like also like with the artwork, um, we got to play with a few ideas, but um, I'd like the split screen and then the dots at the bottom, which kind of implies a pedal. So
Mm,
I was just like, even the title was better than cycling because cycling you've got wheels and spokes, whereas pedaling it was very much you could play with that as a graphic thing. And I like this idea that we can cross creative genres and things like that. And it's just like if you're a musician, you do other stuff, and if you're a poet, you are interested in other stuff and do
mm.
other things. Like so, having being able to bring something that into a coherent whole is like something I'm really interested in.
And one final thing before I ask about the future collaborations you guys have planned, I just want to ask Ross, as you mentioned, like the kind of line share, I guess, of your music is instrumental based, but how do you discern between, I guess, a song that is suitable solely as an instrumental versus a song that maybe require vocals?
I always try and make something that stands alone by itself, only if it can be elevated then I think we can have vocals on it. I don't necessarily need vocals for, and a lot of the music I listen to doesn't have vocals. But in this instance, I was like, I can instantly hear this being better with Dara, like doing something on it. So it's like I don't know, maybe I don't know. I can't really define it, but I instantly heard it. That's the weird thing. I was like, oh, I've got the perfect thing. I may as well just message him. So that was me go, and that piece was never released beforehand. So in the back of my mind, I must have been, yeah, it's not quite there. There's something missing, but it's still there, cycling around in my head, and then it just came out at this moment when I messaged him.
Right. And obviously it was a good collaboration because you guys are working on more music. Are you keeping that stuff close to your chest, or are you open about discussing it?
We don't know yet. But we are good. Yeah, I suppose we just need to talk about it because it's just like I also it's like what's the point in
Mm.
not talking about it? It's like um but yeah, I've got another um project called Fellborn, which I've got loads of albums for, but none of them have ever been released. I'm working with like filmmakers on pieces around Donegal, with a guy called Mark Littler, who's an amazing director, and all of these things of around this Fellborn project, but no one's heard anything. So and it's non-beat music. It's very much strings and like stuff like that. So and I instantly heard um, the potential for another collaboration in that way, and have just been sending Dara music, and it's been quite amazing. Like
Mm.
so easy. Like it just seems to we just get each other somehow. So I'll send it, and then yeah, Dara will have something written or has been inspired. I don't know quite how he does it, but it just seems to work every time. It's quite unbelievable.
Mm. Yeah, we won't question the black box of it all, but yeah, and it's been like it's like that. Like he sends me a new track, and then for me, it's like, okay, here's an opportunity to write something new to new music and it's specific to that music. Like only one of the tracks we've done so far came from a poem I'd already written a couple of years ago that's been published. And that was the first one we did with Felburn because it was just, it was different to pedaling because there was no beat. So I was like, I think this will fit in there. And then the rest of them have just been like, I've listened to the track and things have just sprung to existence in my mind. I'm like, okay, let's write about this. And they've all been quite varied, like they're all quite different. And they all have like a fairly potent message in them as well at the same time. So yeah, it's been really just enjoyable and as Ross said, like smooth and easy. And it's just like he sends me a couple of tracks. A few days later, I send back the recorded vocals, and he puts them together, and there we go.
Actually, I was going to let you go, but I just had one very brief question for you, Dara, just based on something you said there. So you're talking about kind of repurposing an old poem that had been published some years back. This is probably just like something solely for creatives, I guess, or people who are submitting work. But do you think it's when you're kind of like submitting work for publication in journals and stuff, do you try to make sure that the material you're submitting reserves the rights to you? Because I know some publications, for example, request a copyright to whatever it is you're submitting, and then obviously they kind of own it essentially. Or other places reserve the rights to the author, which I think is a more ethical way of doing things because it is their work. Do you make sure to check that before submission?
Yeah, definitely. Like, and also like most places that want the rights, they just want the rights in the first instance. So they basically have the rights for the first publication of the poem, which is fine because they're the ones publishing it. But then the rights come back to you. So, and also like there is kind of like loopholes in that, like, so say a lot of publications won't publish work if it's already been published, and
Yeah,
that's either by like another journal or if you've published it on your social media. But that's only in print form. So if I do a video of a poem, a recording of a poem, and then I try to submit it, that's technically never been published. So equally, it works in the reverse, where like this is not a print publication of the same poem; it's a recording of it. So it's actually a different piece of IP entirely. Um, so they can't really do anything about that.
sure. Consult your solicitor beforehand, I guess, is the advice.
Yeah. Read the fine print.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your time. I've really enjoyed talking to both of you. Is there anything you guys would like to add before we wrap up? Anything you feel we haven't covered or anything people should know?
I don't think so. I think you've been.
No, it's been a great chat though.
It's been well thought out.
Thanks very much for your time, guys, and
I
best
suppose
of luck.
listen to the track would be the last thing.
Oh
you should
yeah,
say.
sorry, yeah. It's out the 24th of June on this Tuesday. So it
Yes.
might be in the past when this comes out. I don't know. But
I'm trying to get it out for the release date to kind of coincide. So yeah, I'll get it up during the weekend and hopefully have it submitted for Tuesday. So yeah, so let's just say tentatively it's out today.
today.
And you can see it by looking up Throwing Snow. That's where you'll find it.
Yeah, totally. And probably under Daragh Fleming as well.
Yeah.
As long as our
The metadata goes true.
there you
go. So now you have like all that set up for the music side too. The under your name. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, and you,
Thank you
thanks
very
for
much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Take it easy, guys.
Bye. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.